All right. So many people trickling in. I'm so excited so many people are attending this. Thank you so much, everybody, for logging in. So without any more, welcome to the exhibition exchange. Henrietta Giles talks African Americans in country music in celebration of African American musician or Music Appreciation Month. Ms. Giles is an award-winning writer and producer and has worked independently over the years for broadcast and cable television, corporations, and online media. She has developed documentaries, lifestyle programming, and marketing strategies for a number of media companies. She worked with civil rights icon, the Reverend Joseph E. Lowery, and co-wrote his first book project, Singing the Lord's Song in a Strange Land, published in 2011. She wrote, produced, and directed the 2015 Emmy Award-winning documentary, Reflect, Reclaim, Rejoice, Preserving the Gift of Black Sacred Music. She was a freelance field producer for the Oprah Winfrey Show for several years, working on segments that cover the Hurricane Katrina aftermath and rebuilding efforts, the Missouri child abductions, Oprah and Gail's road trip, holiday specials, and several other features. She has produced projects for the Oprah Winfrey Network, CBS News, CMT/MTV, Food Network, the Hallmark Channel, and others. Ms. Giles also co-created and produced the award-winning film Waiting in the Wings, African Americans in Country Music for CMT and MTV networks. In this groundbreaking documentary, it highlights the contributions African Americans have made in country music. In the fall of 2015, Ms. Giles joined the faculty in the communications department at the University of Tennessee at Martin. She takes pride in teaching the next generation of journalists and media professionals while sharing her experiences of working many years in the media industry. So without further ado, I am going to hand over the virtual mic to Professor Giles, our extremely talented and very, very accomplished speaker for this evening. So thank you so much, Professor Giles, for joining us tonight.
Ooh, the pressure is on after all of that. So thank you very much, Adriana. I appreciate everything that you've done in pulling this event together. Good evening to everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces and names, so I hope I will do you all proud. But thanks so much for joining this installment of the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center's celebration of Black History Month. I do want to officially thank Sonia Outlaw Clark and Adriana for welcoming me to take part in this event. I'm honored to be here because it's really like coming home. This area is very much a part of my life. I grew up in Stanton, so you know, any excuse to come home is a good reason. I still have siblings who live there, and it's always a joy to come home, and I'm always happy to participate in anything that relates to Haywood County. My love for this region has even found its way into some of my research. There's a rich history here that a lot of people aren't aware of. It's a history that has actually impacted this nation on a lot of different levels. Tonight, though, I will focus on music, something that Haywood County is known for, but my focus will lean toward country music, specifically African Americans in country music, and my work as a producer and filmmaker covering this genre. Full disclosure, I am not a music scholar. I just play one on TV. I have produced two documentaries that deal with music. One, Black sacred music, and the other one, country music, which I'll show a couple of clips tonight. My academic interest involves, my academic research interest involves African American media representation and how certain media examples impact the perceptions and identity of African Americans. So there is some connection there. I'll point to some common beliefs in country music and discuss how these long-standing norms affect Blacks who embrace this music, and also those who wish to break into this industry. Now, while this area is known for blues music legends, it's not a stretch to discuss the blues and country music in the same conversation. So I'm really happy that the Delta Heritage Center is looking at some other genres that Black Americans are involved in. And I'm sure many of you already know that Native Daughter, Tina Turner, recorded country music, as did Ray Charles, the Pointer Sisters, Lead Belly, and many other Black music legends, people who you don't typically associate with country music. Many look at these two music forms, the blues and country, as cousins, with both having similar themes about life, bad luck, and love. In one genre, Black Americans have flourished and are closely identified with its roots and sound. The other, not so much. In fact, you could refer to it as Black people's unrequited love affair with country music. They love country music, but does country music love them back? That's a question that many Black country music artists have grappled with for a century now, actually more than a century. Despite providing a foundational structure for this music, Black artists could be said to be the side chicks of country music. I don't love you, but there's something about you that's a bit interesting, and I'll call you when my interest peaks. That's how the back and forth relationship between Black country artists and the industry has been for decades. And even though there are occasional signs of affection, Music Row is yet to put a ring on it. The professional struggle of Black country artists is rather ironic when you consider the beginnings of country music. Those beginnings can be traced to Africa. The instrument that resulted in the banjo came from Africa, as did many of the rhythms of traditional country music by way of enslaved Africans. And so many white country artists were influenced by Black artists. I remember having a conversation with Johnny Cash many years ago, and he talked about, and he also wrote about this in his book. He talked about Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and how he was he was just transcended by her voice and her guitar skills. And of course, you've heard the story probably about Hank Williams, how he credited this Black blues musician named T-Top as the person who taught him how to play. So for many years, I've worked as a writer and producer for several entertainment, television, and cable programs. These were the pre-cool and affordable living days of Nashville. And I see one of my colleagues, Fran Walsh, is on. She can attest to that. So if it was entertainment, it was country. I enjoyed it immensely and got to work with the top entertainers in the industry. And I learned a lot about how the industry works. During that part of my career, I never saw another Black person like myself working behind the scenes in production. And rarely did I see African-American country performers. There were 3 Black people that I would see regularly whenever I was covering artists, particularly live events. And they were backup singers. Now, I don't say that as a description to diminish them. It's quite the opposite. These individuals sang backup for Winona, Garth Brooks, and every other major artist, country or otherwise, who was fortunate enough to book them. And they were Kim Fleming, Vicki Hampton, and Bob Bailey. They are some of the most versatile artists around, and they brought the soul to country. From conversations with them, they pointed out the misery that they faced bringing their Blackness into an industry that is identified as white. Everything from being denied entrance to a performance venue because they didn't belong, or ordered to move equipment because they looked like they did belong in the capacity to serve. So country music has a lot of work to do in terms of creating a more inviting space for Blacks to move around comfortably and to create with ease. And it's not just country music. I don't want you to think that this is a slam on that industry, but really when you examine other industries, you will find similarities there. You will find systems that aren't necessarily designed to accommodate Blackness. And when we show up, it's easier to dismiss us rather than embrace us. It's a topic no one wants to discuss, but unless we do, we will continue in this lopsided love affair with country music. The question about the lack of Black representation in country music was the premise of a documentary I co-created and produced for CMT in 2004. Now that year is significant because many of the issues Black country artists faced then, they are still being debated today, some 17 years later. The documentary is entitled Waiting in the Wings, African Americans in Country Music. Carla Winfrey and I pitched the idea to CMT several times actually. And eventually we were able to produce a groundbreaking film that shed light on Black Americans' contributions to country music and the roadblocks they encounter trying to break into the industry. We featured a lot of young people, actually people of different age groups who were trying desperately to get into this industry. Our documentary was the first of its kind to air on CMT. And I do want to show a short clip of this one, and it's the one labeled Origins. Adriana.
Just give me 1 second. I want to make sure I did the, okay, here we go. Sound share. There we go. My apologies. All right. And
this music came out of the cotton fields and out of the cornfields on the farms and on the slave plantations.
Black influence on country music is immeasurable.
Why are you singing their music? But it's my music too.
One day, there will be a Black person who goes to the bank on country.
At the heart of country music is a story, the story of humble beginnings, heartbreak, and triumph. What you are about to see is the story of African Americans who love country music. Question is, does country music love them back?
Well, I like getting up on stage and playing because there's people out there and they're hollering and cheering for you.
I like to watch the expressions in the audience because they always love it. And like Buddy said, they cheer and holler and they clap and then they just love it so much.
Well, they say like, wow, I've never seen African Americans play bluegrass music, and some people say I never even heard of, this type of music, but, I like it.
The modern American country music can be traced back to Africa. America's slave trade captured not only the people of West Africa, but the African sound also.
African instruments was brought over by the slave traders to the New World. They needed the instrument to encourage people to come up on deck to exercise because the conditions were so terrible. So many of them died.
Is anybody going to San Antonio or Phoenix, Arizona? Any place is alright as long as I can forget I've ever known her.
In the early days of touring, neither Pride nor the audience knew what to expect.
And now, from RCA, Charlie Pride. And I come out of those shadows up in the lights and like turning down a volume. You could drop a pin. So what we had come up with, we said, now, ladies and gentlemen, I realize it's a little unique me coming out here on a country music show wearing this permanent tan.
And I was asked to come and audition, so I had an audition. And
from there, Star Search happened, and I was on the show.
There is no Arizona. Please welcome Reecey Palmer.
The blue, never-ending sky. Swore that he was gonna get things in order. He'd sent for her when he left her behind. It never crossed her mind. There is no Arizona.
Okay, so that's one clip from the film that we did. Again, this was back in 2004, and the full documentary was an hour and a half, and it aired on CMT. So that's one clip. I have another one that I will show you a little later. But while we were working on that, and of course everyone knows Charlie Pride. He is the, when you talk of a Black country artist, he is the artist that comes to mind. He's the preeminent artist. And so, of course, he had an illustrious career, somewhat rocky, of course, as you can imagine, performing in the 1950s, 1960s, in the South as a Black man, playing mainly at white venues. So his story is pretty incredible, and the documentary goes into more detail about his life. But we were intentional about telling the stories of Black people who love this music. The last person who you saw there was Reecey Palmer, who is a young performer who is still working in the industry, and I'll talk a little bit more about her later. But we were intentional about putting the spotlight on people who love this music and bringing in, not only telling those stories, but bringing in other Black creatives to help us tell it in a really beautiful way. The film's music was scored by then BMI music executive Thomas Kane, who was one of, if not the only, Black executive on Music Row for a while. And then there was another young Black brother named Ryan Rowland, who at the time was working at CMT, and he was the animator and the graphics designer for the Open. And then my friend Barry Scott, who passed away last year, he was the incredible narrator for the film. And so it was important for us to tell this story in a way, but also bring in other people who could have their handprint on this project as well. And as producers, it was not easy sailing for us by no means. There were a lot of hurdles, but we wanted to make a lasting project so people would know the role that African Americans have played in country music from the beginning. So, having to negotiate those hurdles and the different things that were put before us. Yes, it was a headache, but in the end, it was worth it because we felt this was a story that deserved to be told. I grew up hearing the stories of how my grandfather used to stop everything on Saturday evenings and listen to the Grand Ole Opry on the radio. And to our young attendees, this was a time before television, actually. So people gathered around the radio, which were usually, these large, almost like pieces of furniture. They gathered around large radios to be entertained. And I actually have a photo of my grandfather that I'd like to share, and I hope you guys can see this. But this is Jesse Giles Sr. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. But that's my grandfather, and as you can see, he is standing by a radio. And but I've grown up all of my life hearing the stories about how he loved to listen to the Grand Ole Opry. And I think the Red Foley show, and I see my siblings are on, as well as my cousin Richard, who can maybe correct me if I'm putting the wrong show out there, but I think it was the Red Foley show. And he was one of several performers and announcers on the Grand Ole Opry. And just thinking about my grandfather and other people, and maybe some of you in the audience who enjoy country music, I've never really understood how music is supposed to be compartmentalized by race. And of course, you can think back to, decades ago when there was so-called race music, where you had hillbilly music, and then you had race music that was designated for Black artists. So that whole concept of, if you're Black, you should only listen to or perform this type of music, or if you're white, this kind of music should only appeal to you. Music evokes emotion because of how it makes us feel. A certain amount of melanin does not determine how much we like a melody. My grandfather was a proud Black man, and he listened religiously to country music. And I have no doubt that he was also a fan of DeFord Bailey. DeFord Bailey is considered the Opry's first star. He was the Opry's first star. And to say that Mr. Bailey was a harmonica player is like saying Simone Biles is a gymnast. This Black man excelled in his craft in the early days of the Grand Ole Opry a century ago. He made his harmonica sound like there are at least two people playing, because the first time I watched this clip when we were working on the film, I just knew that there was a second person playing, but it's him. So he was very masterful at playing the harmonica. And so that's the second clip that I would like to show you all. And Adriana, you can start it at around 54 seconds.
Okay, going right ahead.
And so this is DeFord Bailey.
In the 1920s, country music's budding popularity was heightened by the Grand Ole Opry, Nashville's legendary radio program. Every Saturday evening, tens of thousands of people across a mostly rural landscape listened to its down-to-earth for the earthy brand of entertainment. The show's first solo star was a 4'11" talented harmonica wizard. What radio audiences didn't know, the musician who made more Opry appearances in 1928 than any other performer was a Black man.
When DeFord Bailey began playing, what he would do is stand on a coat box, lean over, and play right into the harmonica. And the radio listening audience thought they were hearing something that was absolutely wonderful.
They gave him the right name when they called him the Harmonica Wizard, because he was super bad on that harp. A long time they thought Dad was a white man. A long time. When they found out different, I think that's when things started getting shaky.
The Jim Crow South made it hard for a Black man traveling with Grand Ole Opry stars.
When he was on the road, he had to not sleep in the rooms with the other country music stars. He was left in the car. They served him food. By the time he got his food, it was cold. Roy Cuff mentioned himself. He even had a suitcase big enough for my grandfather to get in, and he would sneak him on the elevators and sneak him up to the room.
Throughout the 30s, DeFord Bailey's popularity continued to rise. In 1928, the first recording session ever in Nashville was with Bailey. However, in 1941, Bailey was suddenly fired from the Grand Ole Opry. Opry founder George D. Hay said Bailey was let go for not learning new tunes. To this day, the Grand Ole Opry does not have official documentation justifying Bailey's dismissal.
His daddy was getting too much praise. He realized that, and used that as an excuse.
And there were lots of stories about how people would come out and just be so excited to see him. And when he would get his applause while he was on the stage, he would get a lot more applause than other people.
DeFord Bailey, who for 15 years amazed national audiences with his masterful harmonica skills, spent his remaining years as a shoeshine man. In 1982, DeFord Bailey died, never reaping the gains or the recognition he so richly deserved.
To this day, DeFord Bailey's not in the Country Music Hall of Fame. Why? I don't know. He certainly deserves to be.
Okay, so that's a little bit about DeFord Bailey. He is a phenomenal entertainer, musician, and later on, I would encourage you to look up more clips about him and read more about him. He had such an interesting life and really heartbreaking. It makes me sad every time I see that clip because the acclaim that he amassed, he was not able to benefit from that later in his life. It's heartbreaking to hear how this musical genius was cast aside by the same institution that he helped to build. The Opry didn't want to pay him for his music. That's the real reason. And as a result, Mr. Bailey and his descendants lost out on perhaps millions of dollars in royalties. That's generational wealth. That's something that was taken away from him, but also his family members who came behind him, because he truly helped to put the Opry on the map and did so much for that institution that's still around today. And so it's heartbreaking that he was labeled that way. He was not lazy. He was a hardworking, talented man who demanded what he was due. And you may have heard in the clip also that DeFord Bailey was the first performer, black or white, to record music in Nashville. And so he added to that Music City moniker that actually began with the Fisk Jubilee Singers. So, don't let anyone convince you that Blacks do not have a place in Nashville or country music. They literally gave this city its music identity. DeFord Bailey was eventually inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2005. It was a year after our documentary aired, and we had so hoped that it would be done in time for us to include that in the documentary, because this was something that had gone on for years, where different people were trying to get him inducted into the Hall of Fame. But thankfully, he now has his place alongside other legends in the Country Music Hall of Fame. The last decade has given us a few glimmers of hope that country music might be ready to swipe right with Black artists. We've seen artists like Mickey Guyton, Darius Rucker, Kane Brown, and Reecey Palmer shake things up. But we still haven't seen a real commitment to give Black talent the same welcome as white artists. Darius Rucker was a superstar long before he released a country song. And I know a lot of people are, they like to use him as an example of, well, he's a Black artist who's making it in country music. He was very famous before he ever released a country song. So he did not need country music. Country music needed him, which is why they took his call and set up meetings to get his music out there. So who's going to tell Hootie and the Blowfish no? You're already a big star. And so now you want to record some country music? Sure. You already have a name that makes our marketing so much easier. Last night, if any of you saw the CMT Awards, we heard John Legend's name mentioned alongside Carrie Underwood's when their song won Video of the Year. R&B artist Her performed on the show, as did Gladys Knight. These soulful showstoppers are great for ratings, but will we ever hear the live version of Friendship Train, which is what they performed last night? Will we ever hear that on any top country stations? Or will we ever hear hers, her debut, the artist, her, it's a little confusing when you read it, with Chris Stapleton replayed on radio? Probably not. Country music's attempts at giving space to Black artists comes off as performative, not genuine. Again, Gladys Knight is a music legend, so who wouldn't want her to be featured on your awards show? The same can be said for John Legend and her. They can hold their own on any stage, and neither one of them is looking to break into country music, but so many others are. And then, of course, we remember Little Nas X, whose song Old Town Road could not be escaped. Everyone loved that catchy tune only because we couldn't escape it. It was everywhere. But despite its popularity, country radio gave it a lukewarm reception and decided the song didn't have the right look for the country radio format. It looked better when Billy Ray Cyrus added his whiteness to the already established hit. So that was a very interesting turn of events to see just how well or how poorly the country music industry embraced or accepted this very popular song. And it reminded me of a soundbite from the documentary that Michael Eric Dyson gave. We interviewed him to help bring perspective, a social and cultural perspective to the whole notion that it's difficult for Black artists to break into country music. So Michael Eric Dyson, he said that the exclusion of Blacks is sometimes more valuable to the bottom line. And, you know, if you're running a business, of course, you're focused on the bottom line. You want to increase that bottom line. So record labels are willing to leave millions of dollars on the table that Black artists could potentially add to their revenue rather than sign, promote, and market a Black country artist. And, you know, I look at that as a serious kind of racism. Because you are literally leaving money on the table. One of the artists that you saw in the clip is Reecey Palmer. She was the one who had the bright red hair. Reecey is carving a path and building a platform to promote Black country music artists and to talk honestly about the industry. She has a podcast and it's called Color Me Country, and it has garnered much praise and has given her much deserved visibility, additional visibility. Reecey is all about honoring the past as she moves forward. In fact, the name of her podcast, which is Color Me Country, is a nod to Linda Martell, the first Black woman to perform on the Grand Ole Opry. Miss Martell, she is one of those artists whose name should be a household name. But that little thing called racism prevented her from continuing a very successful start in the country music business in the 1960s and 70s. Last night, the CMT Awards show honored her with its Equal Play Award, which, if it weren't so ironic, it could be nice. Equal play. And, you know, I had to sort of look that up to see exactly what the award meant, but it's called the Equal Play Award. Actually, that's why she's not a country superstar. So now she's 80 years old and not in the best of health, but she's being honored for her work, which, you know, not to take anything away from her. I'm glad that she is being recognized and that more and more people will know who she is and what she did. But, you know, who knows where she could have been had her career been cultivated and nurtured rather than put on a shelf and forgotten. And so the last clip that I want to share with you all is from last night, from the CMT Awards. And this is Mickey Guyton, who is another very successful Black country artist. She is introducing Miss Martell. Miss Martell was not there, but she is she's talking about her contributions and show some other clips. So Adriana, you can show that one.
Okay.
When I was growing up, I didn't hear Black women on country radio. I didn't see Black.
Just bear with us for 1 second, sorry.
When I was growing up, I didn't hear Black women on country radio. I didn't see Black women performing country music on television. And to this day, only one Black woman has ever made the top 20 country airplay charts. And that was all the way back in 1969.
Here, I'm so sorry, everyone. Let me
That woman was signed to a record contract by
Probably catch up. It looks like
the
it's
legendary producer and owner of Sun Records. And she became one of the first Black country artists to find commercial success and the very first Black woman to play the Grand Ole Opry. But all of her accomplishments came in the face of the constant indignities she endured as a Black female country artist. Her name is Linda Martell, and this is her story.
It was like a whirlwind.
Living and working in the city.
I guess we're only gonna have to do the small screen. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I got in Nashville on Tuesday. Shelby Singleton did a demo that same day. He cut the record, Color Him Father, that night and released it the next day.
I think I'll color him father. I think I'll color him love.
Shelby put a lot of energy into promotion. Had he not stressed the point that she's the first Black woman of country music, it probably wouldn't have done so well, but I think it did so well out of curiosity. When Shelby signed me, he was wondering, should I put her on SSI, which was his other label, or should I put her on Plantation? And the joke was, we'll put her on Plantation. She's a Black artist. That's a selling point. When the record was released, the first place that I was booked was at the Grand Ole Opry. I was afraid because no other African-American female had ever been on that stage before. When I looked into the audience for the very first time, it was just a sea of faces that I feared because there was no Blacks, none, totally white. But then with the very first chord of the guitar, I knew it was going to be all right. That was the high point of my career. I got 3 standing ovations, and that was something that I didn't expect. The climate of race relations during the late 60s and early 70s were not good. No matter how well your record was doing, the color of the skin stopped you from working in a lot of great places. I traveled to a nightclub in Beaumont, Texas. The club owner, I don't think he really knew I was Black. When I got there, he flatly refused to let me play. A lot of the shows that I did was through a lot of pain, and they love to use the N-word. Go back where you belong. You don't need to sing our kind of music. You're trying to entertain and try to get through the song without crying. And you wonder how anybody can really be that cruel. A woman of color, if you go into country music, if the record stations don't play you, you're not going anywhere. You got to get promoted, you got to get played. Brace yourself. But don't give up.
Linda put out 3 singles, the last being Bad Case of the Blues, and it didn't chart, it wasn't going anywhere on radio, and so essentially Plantation Records decided to shelve her.
Before there was Reecey, before there was Mickey, before there was Miko, there was Linda. She was before her time, but it's not too late to honor her.
We are keenly aware of the need for more inclusivity and representation in the country community for women and people of color.
She carved a path and blazed a trail for all of us to follow.
Because of you, I can and I did.
Congratulations. It is an absolute honor as the first recipient of the CMT Equal Play Award to get to be here and celebrate you.
Congratulations on this much deserved, long time coming Equal Play Award.
You've inspired so many people and you will inspire so many more to come. I'm included in that. God bless you and congratulations.
Congratulations, Linda, on the CMT Equal Play Award. It is truly an honor well deserved.
Hearing Linda sing makes it very clear that she had all the talent to be a huge star, but her career was cut short for just one reason: the color of her skin. The See Her, Hear Her movement and the CMT Equal Play Initiative are dedicated to increasing opportunities for all women in music. Equal play is crucial so that the next generation of women like Linda can flourish in this industry. Linda couldn't be here tonight, but she is watching at home in South Carolina with her family and friends. And earlier this week, her beautiful granddaughter presented her with the Equal Play Award. Congratulations, Linda. We love you so much. I would not be standing here today without you, and none of us would be here without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
So that was the clip from last night's awards show, and you know it was really nice that they honored her, and you know I hope that she understands her place in history and what she has done for country music, even though others may not know or realize that. I hope that she does. And it was a pleasure getting to meet her, because before doing the documentary, I was not familiar with her at all. And the interview that you just saw is actually the interview that we did with her when we did our documentary. So they used that interview to you know, as part of the video tribute to her. And you know, so I hope a lot of other people got to know who she is and appreciate really all of the, you know, all of the hell that she went through as an aspiring Black country artist. And you know, sad to say, a lot of current artists are going through some of the same things. And you know, so I'm hoping that this conversation will end at some point, you know, talking about, you know, rehashing these same issues. But, you know, think about Blacks and country music in terms of when you meet someone. You know, I said before, it was kind of like this unrequited love affair. You want to get to know that person. You want to know the person so you can become more comfortable with who they are. You are more concerned about who they are than what they look like. You like many of the same things, and you want to work together toward a common goal. And all of this may be great, but if you can't get past what a person looks like, the relationship is stalled. And when you care about someone, you spend money on them. You know, when you're in a relationship, you're buying different things and doing different things for that person. You want that person to have the best. In the case of music, that means you will promote and market them. You also want to show them off. You want to put them out there so other people can see this person who's special to you. You want the world to see what you have. So in terms of music, that means you would put them on media platforms to show off their talent. These are all signs of a healthy relationship. And I'm just not seeing a whole lot of change over the past few years, certainly not since we produced this documentary. And it really is this unrequited love affair between Black country artists and the industry. And so you just hope that these artists won't have to settle for a refrain of, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. So let's hope it doesn't go there. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.
Oh, Professor Giles, you had a PowerPoint presentation that you wanted me to share.
Oh, I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to bring that up, thank you for reminding me. These were just some images that I wanted to share. A few familiar faces.
Okay.
And that's Reecey Palmer. Of course, Reecey was one of the artists featured in the documentary, and you saw her on the Linda Martell tribute as well. And Dr. Cleve Francis, he is a recording artist who actually left his practice. He's a medical doctor. And I think he may have gone back to his practice. But he is someone who is so passionate about country music that he gave up being a doctor for a while to pursue that. So again, just looking at the deep love that people have for country music. These are two folks who are also featured in the documentary, Bubba Sparks, there on the left, and the renowned producer Timbaland, there on the right. We met up with them in a studio. They were actually working on a project together. Bubba Sparks is a rapper, but has a love for country music as well, and so does Timbaland. And at the time, Timbaland was actually working with some artists in Nashville who were trying to get some music projects off the ground. So there are people in all different genres who have who have a love for country music, and it shouldn't matter that you're in one particular genre or you look a certain way and be rejected. But that's kind of what we see. You can go to the next one. This is Winona. I worked really closely with her for many years when I was working on different entertainment shows. The background singers that I referenced earlier worked with her, as well as a lot of other stars. But she in the documentary was very open and honest about why Blacks are excluded in country music. So she was one of the artists who we talked to who did not hold back. So, and this is Linda Martell. We interviewed her actually at a school. You can probably tell from the background there. But this was in South Carolina, and she was a delight. She was honored that someone wanted to talk to her, and we were honored to be there to help tell her story. So that's Linda Martell there. And then Ray Charles, of course, Ray Charles had several country albums that he produced. And I had the opportunity to interview him in Los Angeles. This was a few years before the documentary, but we were able to use some of what he talked about in our film. But it was a great pleasure to meet him and to hear him talk about his success. The other thing about Ray Charles that's unique is he was he was pretty famous when he did I think it's called Modern Sounds in Country Music. And so he had some notoriety already, and so they didn't really say no to him when he said, I want to do a country album. So some people who you would never really think about as doing country music have done country music, and he's one of them. And this is Ed Bradley, the legendary CBS correspondent and also 60 Minutes host. This was, I think, the next year, the year after, so it must have been about 2005 when we met him. We were presented the top documentary award with the National Association of Black Journalists. And he was actually being honored that night as well with the Lifetime Award. And so we were able to, say hello to him and show off our award as well. So that's Ed Bradley there. And Carla Winfrey is my co-producer, co-writer on this project. So we were receiving our award that night. Next. Is that the last one?
I believe so. Trying to get. Oh wait, nope.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the last ones are just some folks who I've worked with early on, as you can tell. This was many moons ago. Reba McEntire, and you can just go through those. That's Alan Jackson, Vince Gill. That was the last one.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation, the incredible sharing of clips of your documentary, and just sharing your experiences in your research, and then creating such an awesome, groundbreaking piece that we now have to reflect on and understand more of African American presence and influence in country music. So I'm going to open the floor to questions. And I'm just looking through the lot of people saying congratulations, great story. So thank you everybody for commenting and participating in that and saying, yes, thank you everybody for coming. First question is from Xanis. Is your video available for purchase?
It is not, unfortunately. Waiting in the Wings, CMT contracted us. They hired us to produce it. And so even though we had hoped to negotiate even limited rights to the film, we were unsuccessful with that. So CMT owns it. It would be great if they would make it available for sale. We specifically wanted it to be able to share with schools, with educational institutions, but we were not able to do that. So maybe you can send an email or make a phone call to CMT, and maybe if enough people do that, they might consider making it available to people.
All right, and a question from Francine. Professor Giles, how would you advise a young Black musician interested in performing country music?
Oh gosh, I guess it would be like anything else, just continue to work hard at it and try to make as many connections as you could, reaching out to people in the industry, reaching out to people who maybe you have followed. As you heard from a lot of the people in the clips that I showed, it's not for the faint, especially if you are a person of color in this industry. So, my advice would be just to make as many relationships as you can with people inside the industry, other artists, and just work at your craft. And there are so many ways now to get your music out there. Of course, social media has opened up all sorts of opportunities and different ways that people can expose their work.
Awesome. And keep the questions coming. If anybody would like to ask them, they are, you can put them in the comment section, either in the chat section in Zoom or the comment section for our Facebook Live attendance. One question actually I have for you, Henry. So I know that you've worked on this documentary and you've worked a ton in other places. Do you have any projects that you're working on now related to African-American musicians in either country music or other genres that you'd care to share with us tonight?
I'm not actually working on something that's in progress now, but Carla Winfrey and I have started having conversations with people about doing a second version of Waiting in the Wings, sort of an updated version. And while a lot has not changed, there are definitely some new things to uncover, new people to talk to. So that's something that we hope to work on in the near future.
Absolutely. And Andrea wants to ask, is there a way that you can see the entire documentary? I guess so if you can't purchase it, is there a way that you could have a link to it or be able to access it that way?
I don't have I have the documentary, but I've only uploaded a few clips online, simply because I don't actually own it, so there's some copyright issues there. But there are a couple of clips on my website. They're the same clips that we saw tonight. They are on my website, henrygilesmedia.com.
Awesome. And so I know you talked about it briefly, but are there any other, I know that through the documentary, there were some struggles making it. Is there anything like with relating to those experiences that you'd care to kind of elaborate on or share?
We had a lot of experiences. One in particular was with a music executive, a very high-ranking music executive, and I was having a phone conversation with her, trying to get an interview with her, because for someone at her level, she would certainly have something to say about the concern that a lot of Black artists had about breaking into the industry. And so while I was having this conversation with her, and she was a white woman, she apparently thought she was talking to another white woman and said some things that had she said them today in publicly, she'd probably be out of a job. She talked about Blacks not deserving to be in country music, and to have them there would be as ridiculous as having someone who's Native American or someone who's gay, and that's exactly what she said. And like I said, had she made those comments today and had they been recorded, she probably not be a high-ranking music executive anymore. But she felt really comfortable saying these things because she thought I was a white woman. And so I kept trying to push for us to meet and have lunch, because I wanted to see the response on her face when she saw me. And we were scheduled to get together. This was, a time before Google. So I don't know if someone maybe told her that I was Black or something, but she abruptly canceled our lunch meeting and could never reschedule. So that's one of the things that stood out to me, and I thought, well, it's no mystery that Black artists are having a hard time breaking in when you have to have a meeting with someone like that. So
Wow, that is just, I'm lost for words. That's insane. But I can speak for everybody that we appreciate so much for you sharing your story and sharing your experiences, as well as the clips of the documentary and your work in this facet. So and again, there's more comments and things. Dolly, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat section. That's what we've been doing for the Q&A session. So that's what we've been doing there. So how is it, have you had great experiences overall as a professor teaching future journalists, not only this, but just in the I guess in the field, in the Department of Journalism?
State that again. I think I may have missed the.
With regards to being a professor now and working within the academia, how has your experience been teaching future generations of journalists with regards to, and I guess I'm sure that you're putting in your experiences doing these kinds of doing this documentary and working in this. How has that been?
It has been an enjoyable experience. I really enjoy teaching. Teaching is my second chapter or second career, however you want to look at it, because for so long I was a writer and producer. And about 6 years ago, I made the shift to teach. And I learn a whole lot from my students. I learn about their habits, their trends. And, you know, I talk to my friends who are still work in media. And I tell them things like, we got to do something different, because these students, these young people, they don't watch television the way we watched television. You know, they stream everything, and you know, they don't watch the news. They don't sit down and watch a newscast. And so you have to think of different ways to engage with them. You have to think of different ways to get this information to them, because the way that probably most of us on this call grew up getting information, they do not get their information that way. So it has caused me to sort of shift the way that I teach so that I can reach them as well. But I'm excited to work with students. I'm really interested in storytelling, working with students to develop ideas and then, you know, potentially develop a short film about it. So I am enjoying this second phase of my life.
That's incredible. And Francine, to answer your question, this whole talk will actually be on the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center's Facebook page, and we will also be posting it on the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center's YouTube channel under Exhibition Exchange. So anybody looking who got in a little bit late and wants to start from the beginning, it will be on both that social media platform and on our YouTube channel. So feel free to dive right in again there. But anyway, a lot more chats, but just saying incredible job. Thank you so much. And I couldn't agree more. Professor Giles, thank you so much for this presentation tonight. And I can speak for all of us confidently, which we hope and look forward to any future documentaries or presentations that you'll be doing with regards to this and other subject matter of African Americans within country music. So, that's really the end of our presentation for tonight. Again, thank you, Professor Giles, so much. And thank you everybody for participating.
Thanks to you. And thanks to everybody who attended. I see so many familiar faces and names. Dolly, I went to high school with, so I'm happy to see you there. Xanice, my siblings, Cecil, Francine, Edith, Linda, Patricia, I think. And I think I saw Richard earlier. Yeah. So
you have a pretty loyal following there. That's awesome.
I know. Yeah, it took some of the nerves off. And David Robinson, hey there. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so
see
much to friends, family, and people interested too, all together. Thank you all so much for attending tonight. And we hope to see you soon at the next exhibition exchange. And everybody have a good evening. So take care.